So I'm going to talk really fast here, and it's partly because I'm nervous, but also because I have a lot to get through right now. So as soon as I heard the theme for tonight's event, I knew I wanted to tell a story because I've spent the last 8 years of my life working a series of like incredibly shitty jobs. So I started my career in menial labor at the age of about 17, working in a plastic bag factory. And basically what that amounted to was standing in front of a machine that would spit out plastic garbage bags in bundles of 50, and you would pick them up and turn slightly to your left and place them in a box, and you would just do this for 12 hours a day until you lost the will to live. And like the best part of the day working at that job was when the machines would break down because the plastic would get jammed in there and you have to go scrape it out and you would burn yourself on hot plastic. But it was the best part of the day because it broke up the monotony, and at least like the pain from burning yourself reminded you were still capable of feeling something. And so I moved on from there, and I worked in a carpet warehouse for a while, which wasn't so different from the plastic bag factory, except that the other people who worked there were like slightly better at hiding their addictions. And from there, I worked as a landscaper. I worked on a snowplow crew for a while. I worked a series of other shitty jobs in factories and warehouses through a temp agency. But the story I want to tell you tonight is about tree planting. So at the beginning of last summer, I had lost my job, and I was in like kind of a weird state of mind because of a lot of different things. I really just wanted to do something like very different and get out of the city and do something very different than what I'd been doing before. And I remembered something a friend of mine told me about tree planting. And what she actually told me about tree planting was like, never, ever, 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 ever go fucking tree planting. And like, it's great advice. It's great advice. Like everyone here should follow it. But the thing is, I have no skills, and like the one advantage to tree planting is if you have a pulse and you're willing to like not ask too many questions about safety regulations, any tree planting company will hire you. So that's how I found myself on a bus to the West Coast at the beginning of May last year. And for those of you who've never had the pleasure of riding a Greyhound bus across the country, you should know they function primarily as mobile asylums for the mentally ill and socially maladjusted. Like I could tell an entire like 10-minute story up here just about bus people, but the point is, like, 5 days of sleep deprivation in a cramped area surrounded by crazy people was actually, like, a really good introduction to the experience of tree planting. So, like, the thing you really need to understand about tree planting is it's the worst fucking thing ever. Like, it's terrible. You get all sorts of horrible and bizarre injuries that you wouldn't even think of existed. Like, I got claw hand. Like, I still kind of have claw hand 8 months later. And that's where you wake up in the morning and your hand seizes into a claw position. You actually have to use the fingers of your other hand to pry your fingers open in the morning. I got Christmas toe, which is, which sounds fake, but I swear it's real. It's where your toe goes numb for 4 months after you finish planting because you're walking on uneven ground for 10 hours a day, and your foot gets pressed up into the front of your shoe, and your toe basically just dies for a short period of time. And like, you know, your knees and back just get fucked every way because you're carrying so much weight on you every day. And you're working in like all sorts of inclement weather conditions. Like you work through rain, through snow, through sleet, through hail, sometimes all in one day. And like I know a lot of you out there are probably thinking like, oh, I've worked through rain before. It's not that bad. Maybe some of you have had landscaping jobs. Like, no, you have no idea what rain is like up in northern Alberta in the woods. Like I'm talking like torrential downpours for like 10 hours a day, like washed out roads, and you're still planting through it. Like the worst day we had, my hand was so numb by the end of the day from the cold and the rain that like my brain was still sending the regular signals to it, like, you know, like open, close, do the things a hand is supposed to do, but it just wasn't responding. And I actually had to get my friend Tom to take my belt off at the end of the day because my hands like would not work anymore. And like ultimately, you know, it was awkward, but it kind of brought us closer together as friends. So maybe it was like a net positive. But yeah, I also like I got chased by a bear one day on the block. Another guy got chased by a moose. One guy got struck by lightning one day on the block. Like this is the kind of shit you go through when you're tree planting. And like the first 4 weeks are the worst because when you're a rookie, you make no money because it's piecework. You get paid per tree, and you plant no trees when you're a rookie because you don't know what the fuck you're doing. And so the first 4 weeks are just hell. But after those first few weeks, you get a night off in town. And this was, so like 4 weeks in was our first night off in town. Like we'd had nights off in the woods, but it's not really the same thing. And like you're poor and can't buy any booze anyway. So we go into town the first night off, and we went to this small town in northern Alberta called Hinton. And Hinton was kind of famous among the people who had already planted there for a couple of years because Hinton had one hotel called the Timberland, and the Timberland Hotel was really well known because the Timberland was unique in that it was a hotel that was attached to a bar, a liquor store, and a barber shop. So we went to the Timberland and immediately got like trashed. And when I mean say trashed, I mean like absurdly, unreasonably, like unconscionably drunk, like 14 years old and just raided your parents' liquor cabinet kind of drunk. Like I would never do this in the city, but you're like working out there and you're so stressed out and you're like miles from anyone whose opinion of you care about, and like there's no reason to hold yourself back at all. So we go out to this bar in Hinton, just get incredibly trashed, and one of the guys from the camp starts dancing with this girl there, and I guess her boyfriend was there, got mad at him, they got in a fight, and then like immediately all his other friends from this small town jump in, so like all the planters jump in, and it just turns into this huge brawl in the bar and spills out into the street, and the bartender calls the cops and he tells them like the tree planters started everything, of course, not the locals, because the tree planters usually do start everything. Like we have a bad reputation and it's like completely called for. But so the cops come and we like book it back into the hotel, and I remember like being actually chased through the hotel by the cops, and we got away from them just long enough to like duck into this room that we had rented out there. One of the rooms we had rented out, like 15 of us all like cram into this room, and then we get in there and we look over at the bed, and there's two people from the camp hooking up in the bed next to us, and like they didn't stop when we walked in, like they're still fooling around under the covers, so none of us wanted to be in there. We can't go back in the hall because we can hear the cops now like banging on the doors, like walking down the hall looking for us. So we broke onto the roof, opened the window, like kicked out the screen and just broke onto the roof because we're already in shit anyway. So we broke onto the roof of the hotel, smoked a joint out there, and then like just like hung out and like waited for the cops to go. And eventually, like after 20 minutes, we didn't hear them banging on the doors anymore. So we all like kind of stumbled off to bed. And so I woke up the next morning and I'm just lying there in like so much pain from the first few weeks of planting. Like every part of me hurts and like I have a throbbing headache from this hangover. I'm just thinking like, what the hell am I doing to myself here? Like, this is ridiculous. Like I'm destroying my body doing this, but at the same time I'm thinking like, you know, this has been hell and I've made it through it. Like that's kind of cool these first couple weeks. I'm thinking like the cops might still be after us. Like I don't know how much damage we just did to the hotel last night, how much money we're going to have to pay. But I'm thinking like about all the crazy stories I already have and like all the crazy like hippie planting friends I've made out there. And so I'm laying here with like a horrible hangover and I can barely move, and I like pull out my friend and I just texted my best friend back here in Ontario, and I just texted him 4 words. It just said, "Tree planting is fucking awesome."